The restaurant was called Valentino's, one of those upscale Italian places where the menu didn't have prices and the waiters wore vests that probably cost more than James Rivera's entire outfit. He stood outside for a full 3 minutes, watching couples through the window, their faces glowing in candlelight, completely unaware that someone like him was about to walk in and destroy an evening. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "You there yet? Remember, be boring, be forgettable, make her never want another setup. Easy money." $600. That's what James had agreed to. $600 to show up pretending to be Marcus Whitmore, to sit through one dinner, to be so monumentally dull that the woman across from him would beg her friend to never play matchmaker again. $600 would keep the lights on for another month, would buy his daughter Emma new winter boots, would mean he wouldn't have to choose between groceries and her asthma medication. James pushed through the heavy oak door. The hostess smiled at him with the kind of professional warmth that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good evening, sir. Do you have a reservation?" "Whitmore, 7:30. "Ah, yes, your date is already here. Right this way." His date. Except she wasn't his date. She was Marcus's responsibility, a woman Marcus's sister had set him up with, a woman Marcus had decided wasn't worth his time the moment he saw her photo. "She's a dwarf, man," Marcus had said over drinks last week, his voice dripping with casual cruelty. "My sister means well, but I'm not doing it. I'll pay you to go instead. Just make it so awful she never asks me out again." James said no, at first. Then Emma's school called about the outstanding lunch account balance. Then the landlord called about late rent. Then his car made a sound that mechanics charge hundreds of dollars to fix. So he'd said yes. Now, following the hostess through the dining room, past businessmen and anniversary couples and first dates that were probably going better than this one would, James felt something dark and heavy settle in his chest. Then he saw her. Sophia Martinez sat at a corner table, her phone in her hands, wearing a deep emerald dress that caught the light when she moved. Her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders. She had the kind of face that belonged in old paintings, all sharp cheekbones and intelligent eyes. She was beautiful, and when she looked up and saw him, her expression shifted through a dozen emotions in the span of 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, understanding, and finally something cold and cutting that made James want to turn around and walk straight back out. "You're not Marcus," she said. Not a question, a statement. James stopped at the table, his hands suddenly clammy. "No, I'm not. I've seen his picture. His sister showed me at least 15 photos." Sophia set her phone down with deliberate care. "So what is this? Some kind of elaborate prank? Did Marcus send you here to humiliate me?" The word hung between them like smoke. "It's not like that," James started, but even as he said it, he knew how hollow it sounded. "Then what is it like?" Her voice was steady, controlled, but he could hear the tremor underneath. "Explain to me what possible reason you have for being here instead of the man I was supposed to meet." James sat down because his legs suddenly felt unreliable. Around them, the restaurant buzzed with normal conversation, normal dates, normal people doing normal things. Nothing about this moment felt normal. "Marcus didn't want to come," he said quietly, "so he paid me to come instead." Sophia went very still. "He paid you?" "Yes." "How much?" $600. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. $600. That's what I'm worth. That's the price tag Marcus put on not having to spend one evening with the dwarf girl his sister tried to set him up with. "It's not about you," James said quickly. "Marcus is just—" "Don't!" Her voice was sharp enough to cut. "Don't you dare try to make this about anything other than what it is. I know exactly what this is about. I've lived this my entire life." She grabbed her purse, and James knew he should let her go, should let this disaster end here, collect his money for Marcus, and try to forget the look in her eyes. Instead, he said, "I'm sorry." Sophia paused. "You're sorry?" "Yes. You took money to sabotage my evening, to make me feel like I'm not worth someone's genuine time and attention, and you think sorry covers that?" "No," James met her eyes. "I don't think sorry covers anything. I think what I agreed to do is indefensible. I think I'm a coward who let desperation turn me into someone I don't want to be." "Is this the part where you tell me your sob story?" Sophia's grip tightened on her purse. "Where you explain why you needed the money so badly that humiliating a stranger seemed like a reasonable option?" "I have a daughter. She's 8. Her mother died 4 years ago from complications after a car accident. Medical bills wiped us out. I lost my job 6 months ago. I'm 3 weeks behind on rent. Emma needs new boots because her toes are coming through the front of her current ones. I have $32 in my bank account." He wasn't trying to make excuses. He was just answering her question. "So I'm supposed to feel sorry for you now?" Sophia said flatly. "No, you're supposed to feel however you feel. I'm just telling you the truth, because lying to you is what got us here." Sophia studied him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "Do you know what it's like to spend your entire life watching people decide you're not quite human? To have strangers stare at you in grocery stores? To have men swipe left before they even read your profile because your height is listed? To be someone's punchline before you've even said hello?" "No," James admitted. "I don't." "I stopped dating 3 years ago," Sophia continued, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly, "because I got tired of discovering that every single person I met either fetishized my height or was embarrassed to be seen with me in public. I got tired of being someone's curiosity or someone's charity case." She stood up. "Tonight, for the first time in 3 years, I let myself hope that maybe this time would be different." Marcus's sister talked about him like he was kind, like he was mature, like maybe he'd be the kind of person who could see past the first thing everyone notices about me. "I'm sorry," James said again, knowing it wasn't enough. "The worst part," Sophia said quietly, "is that you probably are sorry. You probably do have a daughter who needs boots. You probably are desperate, and that makes this whole thing even sadder, doesn't it? That we live in a world where people like you have to degrade people like me just to survive." She turned to leave. "Wait," James said. "If fate decides we cross paths again, maybe we can talk then. But right now, I need to leave." But Sophia was already walking away, weaving through tables with practiced grace, her head held high even though James could see the slight hitch in her shoulders that suggested she was fighting tears. He sat there alone at the table for a long moment, surrounded by happy couples and the smell of expensive wine and fresh bread, feeling like the worst person in the world. The waiter approached cautiously. "Sir, would you like to order?" "No," James said, standing up. "I'm leaving." Outside, the October air was cold enough to make his eyes water. At least that's what he told himself. The next morning, James drove to Marcus's office in downtown Portland. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place where everyone wore suits that cost more than James made in a month back when he had a steady income. The receptionist looked at him like he'd tracked mud across her pristine floor. "Do you have an appointment?" "Marcus is expecting me." She made a call, her expression suggesting she didn't believe him, but a moment later she waved him through. Marcus's office had a view of the city skyline. He was sitting behind a massive desk, grinning when James walked in. "Rivera, how'd it go? Did she buy the act?" James set $600 in cash on the desk. Marcus's grin faded. "What's this?" "The deal's off. I'm not doing it." "You already did it, man. The money's yours." "I don't want it." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying James like he was a particularly confusing piece of art. "You're really gonna walk away from $600 over some girl you don't even know?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I looked at myself in the mirror this morning and didn't recognize the person looking back. James turned toward the door. "Find someone else to do your dirty work." "You're making a mistake," Kalen called after him. "I've made plenty of those, but keeping your money isn't going to be one of them." Outside, sitting in his car that needed an oil change he couldn't afford, James pulled out his phone and stared at the landlord's text messages. 3 weeks late on rent. Eviction proceedings would start next week if he didn't pay. He closed his eyes and tried to remember how to breathe. 6 days later, James was at the Portland Central Library with Emma. It was their Sunday tradition, the one constant in a life that felt like it was held together with duct tape and determination. The library was Emma's favorite place in the world. She loved the children's section with its colorful murals and oversized beanbag chairs. Most of all, she loved that it was free. "Dad, did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts?" Emma announced, looking up from a book about marine life. "That's so many hearts." "Maybe they need extra hearts because they have so much love to give," James suggested. Emma considered this seriously. "Or maybe they get really sad sometimes and need backup hearts in case one breaks." Before James could figure out how to respond to that observation from an 8-year-old, Emma had already moved on. "I'm going to find the horse books. There's one about a wild horse in Montana, and I need to know if she's okay, because last time there were wolves." She took off toward the stacks, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor, her ponytail bouncing. James watched her go, this fierce little human who'd somehow kept him standing when everything else had fallen apart. She had her mother's eyes, Lucia's eyes, that same way of looking at the world like it was full of wonder, even when it had given them every reason to stop believing. He wandered toward the new releases section, not really looking for anything particular, just killing time until Emma needed him to explain something or reach a book on a high shelf. Then he saw her. Sophia Martinez was standing near the biography section, wearing jeans and a burgundy sweater, completely absorbed in reading the back of a book. She hadn't noticed him yet. Every instinct told James to leave, to grab Emma and get out before Sophia saw him, before he had to see that look in her eyes again, the one that said he'd disappointed her in ways he couldn't quite articulate. But he'd already been a coward once. "Sophia." She looked up, and the walls went up immediately. "You." "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see." James kept his distance, giving her space. "My daughter and I come here every Sunday, but I couldn't walk past without trying again to apologize properly." "You already apologized." "I know, but you didn't have the space to hear it, not really." He took a breath. "What I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong when I agreed to it. You deserved better than to be part of Marcus's scheme, and I'm sorry I participated in it." Sophia studied him for a long moment. "Why did you give the money back?" "How did you know I gave it back?" "I didn't." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "I was testing a theory." Before James could respond, a voice called out from the children's section. "Dad! Dad! The horse is okay! The wolves went to a different valley and she—" Emma came racing around the corner, holding a book over her head like a trophy. She skidded to a stop when she saw Sophia, her eyes going wide with surprise. "Oh, hello." "Hello," Sophia said, and something in her expression softened. Emma tilted her head, studying Sophia with the kind of unfiltered curiosity that only children possess. "You're really small. Like me, but different because I'm small because I'm 8, but you're small like a grown-up who's small." "Emma," James started, mortified, but Emma was already moving closer, her face lighting up. "Are you a fairy? Because in my books, fairies are small when they have magic, and you look like you could have magic." Sophia laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. "I'm not a fairy, unfortunately. I'm just a person who didn't grow as tall as most people."
"Oh," Emma nodded like this made perfect sense. "My dad's body works differently too. His back hurts a lot from his old job, and sometimes he gets really tired because he stays up late looking at job websites. And one time I heard him crying in the bathroom, but he said he was just tired." "Emma," James's voice cracked slightly. "What? You always tell me to be honest." She looked between them, confused by the tension she could feel but didn't understand. Sophia was looking at James differently now, not with anger, something closer to understanding. "What's your name?" she asked Emma. "Emma Rose Rivera." What's yours? Sophia. That's a pretty name, Emma smiled, revealing the gap where she'd lost a tooth last week. It sounds like a princess name. Thank you. Sophia crouched down to Emma's level, bringing them almost eye to eye. What book did you find? It's about Wildfire. She's a Mustang who lives in Montana, and there were wolves coming, but they went to a different valley, so now she's safe. Emma held up the book. Do you want to see? There's pictures and everything. I'd love to see. And just like that, Emma grabbed Sophia's hand and pulled her toward the children's section, talking the entire way about horses and wolves and mountains, and how sometimes things work out even when you think they won't. James followed at a distance, watching his daughter, who'd been wary of strangers since Lucia died, warm up to Sophia like they'd known each other forever. In the children's section, Emma showed Sophia every book she'd selected. She explained in elaborate detail why the octopus book was important, why the book about the girl who built robots was inspiring, why the one about the dog who saved his family made her cry in a good way. Sophia listened to all of it, asking questions, making observations, treating Emma's enthusiasm like it genuinely mattered. Finally, Emma crashed into a beanbag chair shaped like a giant turtle, the horse book open in her lap, her eyes already starting to droop from the early morning soccer practice she'd had. Sophia stood up, and James walked over. She really likes you, he said quietly. She's remarkable, Sophia's voice was soft. You're raising an incredible human. That's all her. I'm just trying not to mess it up. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Emma fight sleep and lose. I come here most Sundays, Sophia said, not quite looking at him. For a book club. We meet at 11.
We're usually here by 9:30, James said. So if we happen to run into each other again, I wouldn't be opposed to that, James finished. She looked at him then, really looked at him. I don't forgive you yet, maybe not for a while. That's more than fair. But I'm not saying never either. That's more than I deserve. Probably, she said, but she was almost smiling. See you next Sunday, maybe. Maybe, James agreed. She left, and James sat down next to Emma's beanbag chair, his mind spinning with possibility. Dad? Emma's sleepy voice drifted up. Yeah, sweetheart? I like Miss Sophia. She's nice. Me too, Emma. Me too. The next Sunday, they ran into each other again. Emma spotted Sophia first, letting out a squeal of delight that made several people look over disapprovingly. Miss Sophia! Miss Sophia, you came back! I told you I'd be here, Sophia said, laughing as Emma bounded over. It became a pattern. 3 Sundays turned into 5, 5 into 8. Emma would monopolize Sophia for the first hour, showing her books and enlisting her help in elaborate imagination games that involved being astronauts or deep-sea explorers or paleontologists discovering new dinosaurs. Then Emma would inevitably crash in a beanbag chair, exhausted by her own enthusiasm, and the adults would talk. Slowly, carefully, like people learning to trust something fragile, they told each other their stories. Sophia told him about growing up different, about being the only child in her elementary school with achondroplasia, about the stares and the questions and the kids who'd made her the punchline of jokes she didn't understand until she was older. My parents loved me, she said one Sunday in November when the weather had turned cold enough that they wore jackets to the library. But they didn't always know how to protect me from a world that saw me as less than. She told him about college at Reed, about finding her strength in nonprofit work focused on disability advocacy, about learning to fight for herself than others. And she told him about dating, about men who'd fetishized her height, who'd been embarrassed to be seen with her in public, who'd revealed their true colors in 1,000 small cruelties. I stopped trying 3 years ago, she said. It seemed safer to be alone than to keep hoping for something different. In return, James told her about Lucia, about falling in love at 24, about a woman who sang off-key in the shower and cried during commercials and made the world's best chocolate chip pancakes. He told her about the car accident when Emma was 4, about the surgery that should have been routine, about the infection that wasn't, about complications that cascaded until suddenly his wife was dying and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. "She died on a Wednesday afternoon," he said, and his voice only shook slightly. "Spring. The window was open, and there were birds singing in the cherry tree we'd planted the year before. Emma was at my mother's house. I was holding Lucia's hand, and I felt the exact moment she left." Sophia reached over and took his hand. She didn't say anything. There was nothing to say, but the contact was enough. "The medical bills destroyed us," James continued. "I thought I'd prepared for everything, thought I had adequate insurance, but nothing prepares you for end-of-life care, for experimental treatments, for the 1,000 expenses that aren't covered. We lost our house. I lost my job because I'd taken too much time off. Ended up in a 2-bedroom apartment with Emma asking me every day when Mommy was coming home." "How did you tell her?" Sophia asked quietly. "I said that Mommy's body stopped working, but that her love for Emma would never stop, that she was somewhere we couldn't see, but she could see us, like a star." He swallowed hard. "Emma asked if Mommy could see her dreams. I said yes. I don't know if that's true, but I said yes." They sat in silence, both carrying the weight of their histories. "Emma saved me," James finally said. "After Lucia died, there were days I wanted to give up, but every morning this little person needed me, needed breakfast and clean clothes and help with her homework. She needed me to be okay. So I learned how to fake being okay, until someday it wasn't completely fake anymore." "Children anchor us," Sophia said softly. "They need us so completely that we don't have the luxury of drowning." In December, Sophia invited them to her apartment to meet her 2 cats, Pixel and Bite. The apartment was in a renovated warehouse in the Pearl District with exposed brick walls and enormous windows that filled the space with light. Sophia had adapted everything thoughtfully: lower countertops in the kitchen, custom furniture, everything arranged for maximum accessibility without sacrificing style. "This place is incredible," James said, looking around. "I designed most of it myself," Sophia admitted. "Took me a year to find an architect who understood that accessible doesn't have to mean institutional." Emma was already on the floor, having been adopted by both cats who decided she was acceptable and were now purring like small engines in her lap. "They like you," Sophia observed. "I think they're magic," Emma whispered, petting them with the kind of reverence usually reserved for sacred things. Sophia had set up a treasure hunt around the apartment for Emma, little clues that led to small surprises, and eventually to a plate of homemade chocolate chip cookies. "You didn't have to do all this," James said, watching Emma race around with an enthusiasm that made his chest ache in the best way. "I wanted to," Sophia said simply. They had dinner, pasta Sophia made from scratch, while Emma helped by stirring and taste testing and providing running commentary on everything. Afterward, they watched a movie, and somewhere in the middle, Emma fell asleep on the couch with both cats curled up beside her. James and Sophia sat in the kitchen drinking tea, in that comfortable silence of people who'd learned they didn't need to fill every quiet moment. "I need to tell you something," Sophia said suddenly. James looked up. "My last name isn't just Martinez. Legally it is. I changed it. But I was born Sophia Martinez Chen. My mother is Caroline Chen." The name landed like a stone. Caroline Chen, founder of Chen Technologies, Forbes 400, the kind of person whose name showed up in business school case studies. "You're an heiress," James said slowly. "Technically," Sophia's hands tightened around her mug. "Do you know what it's like to have real wealth when you look like me? Every person I've dated, every friend I've made, I've always wondered, do they actually care about me, or do they see a trust fund? She explained that she'd simplified her name at 23, that she lived like a normal person, working a normal job, that she had a trust fund she rarely touched except for emergencies and charitable donations. I work because I want to work. I live here because I chose it, not because it was bought for me. Why are you telling me this? James asked. Because I like you, she said it matter-of-factly, like stating something obvious. And I like Emma. And with you, for the first time in years, I got to be just Sophia, not an heiress, not a Chen, not someone with a net worth attached to my identity. I wasn't ready to give that up. You don't have to give anything up, James said. Really? There was something vulnerable in her eyes. Because most people, when they find out about the money, I don't care about your mother's money, James leaned forward. I care about the woman who spent 2 hours last week helping Emma understand why penguins can't fly. I care about the person who remembered that Emma's favorite color is purple and bought purple napkins for tonight. I care about Sophia, not the Chen fortune. How do I know you mean that?
You don't, James admitted, but I'm not going anywhere. Your secret is safe, and if it takes time for you to believe that, I'll wait. Sophia's eyes were bright. Okay, she smiled, and it transformed her entire face. From the couch, Emma mumbled something in her sleep that sounded suspiciously like, "Dad likes Miss Sophia." They both laughed quietly, not wanting to wake her. Spring arrived slowly that year, Portland's gray winter reluctant to release its grip. But by March, cherry blossoms were blooming, and James had found a new job, project manager for a construction company. Sophia had made the introduction, casual and careful, just mentioning that a colleague's husband was looking for someone with James's experience. Would he be interested in an interview? The interview went well. The pay was significantly better than the delivery driver job he'd been cobbling together. Regular hours, benefits, room for advancement. "I don't know how to thank you," James said when he got the offer. "You don't have to thank me. I just made an introduction. You got the job because you're good at what you do." For the first time in 4 years, James could breathe without feeling like he was drowning. He moved Emma into a better apartment, bought her new shoes that actually fit, enrolled her in the art classes she'd been begging to take. "Dad, are we rich now?" Emma asked one evening, looking around their new living room with wide eyes. "No, sweetheart, but we're stable, and that's pretty wonderful." "Stable is very wonderful," Emma agreed seriously. Then, with the lightning-fast subject changes of childhood, "I think Miss Sophia likes you, likes you. "What makes you say that?" "Because she gets all smiley when you say nice things, and she laughs at your jokes even when they're not that funny. And yesterday, when you weren't looking, she was looking at you like how the princess looks at the prince in my books." "You're very observant." "I know," Emma grinned. "So do you like her too? Like her? James thought about Sophia's laugh, the way she listened like every word mattered, how she'd shown up at their old apartment when Emma had the flu, armed with soup and medicine and an offer to help. The way his chest felt too full when she smiled at him. "Yeah, I do." "Then you should tell her." Poppy said this like it was the most obvious thing in the world.
It's more complicated than that, sweetheart.
"Why?"
And there it was, the question with no good answer. Why was it complicated? Because he was scared. Because the last time he'd loved someone, he'd lost her, and the grief had nearly destroyed him. Because Sophia deserved better than a man who still sometimes woke up reaching for a wife who wasn't there anymore. Because grown-up feelings are messy, he finally said. All feelings are messy, Emma said wisely. That's what makes them feelings. Summer came early that year. Portland's famous roses blooming in impossible colors. Emma finished 3rd grade, made the honor roll, came home with stories about her day that made James's heart feel too big for his chest. And every Sunday, they went to the library. It was a Sunday in late June, one of those perfect northwest days when the temperature was just right and the sky was impossibly blue, when things finally shifted. Emma had found a new series about a girl who could talk to animals and had dragged Sophia off to show her every single book in the collection. James watched them from across the children's section, his daughter's animated gestures and Sophia's patient attention, and felt something settle into place in his chest. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep in a beanbag chair with a book about wolves open on her lap, Sophia and James sat close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I need to tell you something," James said. "I think I know," Sophia said softly. "Emma told me you practiced talking to me in the mirror." James covered his face with his hands. "I'm going to have a serious conversation with that child about privacy." Sophia laughed and gently pulled his hands away. "I practiced too. I've been waiting for you to say something for about 3 months now." "Really?" "Really." She was looking at him with an expression that made his pulse race. "So say it." James started, then stopped, tried again. "I very much want, if you want." "I do," Sophia said. "I really, really do." He kissed her, gentle, tentative, sweet, like something precious that might break if handled too roughly. When they pulled apart, Sophia was smiling. "That took you long enough." "I was trying to be respectful." "You can be respectful and still kiss me," Sophia said. From across the room came a stage whisper. "I knew it! Dad and Miss Sophia are in love." Emma came charging over, apparently not as asleep as they'd thought, flinging herself at both of them with enough force to nearly knock them over. "Does this mean Miss Sophia is going to be my new mom?" she asked, her face so hopeful it hurt to look at. "Let's take it one step at a time, sweetheart," James said, but he was looking at Sophia, who was looking back with an expression that made him think maybe, possibly, someday wasn't as far away as he'd thought. 3 weeks later, Sophia invited James to meet her mother. "You don't have to," she said quickly. "I know it's a lot. Carolyn Chen is a lot, but she wants to meet you, and I think you should know what you're getting into if we're really doing this." "We're really doing this," James confirmed. "Yeah," Sophia smiled. "Yeah, we are." They drove to the Chen estate on a Saturday afternoon. Emma was at a sleepover, giving them a few hours alone. The house was exactly what James expected. Sprawling, beautiful, the kind of place that had a name instead of just an address. But Carolyn Chen herself was a surprise. She was in her early 60s, elegant in a casual way that probably cost a fortune, and she met them at the door herself. "You must be James," she said, extending her hand. "I've heard wonderful things." "All good things, I hope." "My daughter doesn't waste time on people who aren't worth it." Carolyn smiled at Sophia with obvious affection. "Come in. I promise the house is more intimidating than I am." Over lunch, which Carolyn had apparently cooked herself, another surprise, they talked about everything. Chen Technologies, James's new job, Emma and her latest obsession with marine biology. "Sophia tells me you're a single father," Carolyn said. "That can't be easy." "It's the hardest thing I've ever done," James admitted, "but also the most important." Carolyn nodded approvingly. "My daughter is very important to me, the most important thing, actually, so I need to know that you understand what you're getting into." "Mom," Sophia started. "No, it's okay," James said. He looked at Carolyn directly. "I'm not after your money or your connections. I'm a construction project manager who drives a 7-year-old Civic and lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. But I care about your daughter more than I thought I could care about anyone after my wife died, and I'll spend every day proving that if that's what it takes." The silence that followed felt eternal. Then Carolyn smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. "Good answer. Sophia said you were honest. I appreciate that." The rest of lunch was easier. Caroline told stories about Sophia as a child, about her fierce intelligence and stubborn independence. Sophia rolled her eyes but didn't correct her, which meant the stories were true. As they were leaving, Caroline pulled James aside. "Take care of her," she said quietly. "She's stronger than she looks, but she's also been hurt more than most people realize. Don't add to that." "I won't," James promised. In the car on the way home, Sophia was quiet. That went well, I think, James ventured. She likes you, Sophia sounded surprised. Is that bad? No, it's just, she doesn't like anyone. She's protective and suspicious of everyone who gets close to me, and for good reasons. She reached over and took his hand. But she likes you, which means you must be doing something right. I'm just being myself. I know, she squeezed his hand. That's what I love about you. The word hung in the air between them. Love? James repeated softly. Sophia's eyes widened. I did mean it, but I didn't mean to say it yet. I love you too, James said. She stared at him. Really? Really. I have for a while now. I just didn't know if it was too soon or if you'd want to hear it or... She kissed him right there in the car, in her mother's driveway, and it felt like coming home. Autumn arrived with the first rain in early September. James's life looked completely different than it had a year ago. Better job, stable housing, a daughter who was thriving, and Sophia, brilliant, fierce, wonderful Sophia, who'd somehow seen past his worst moment to the person he was trying to become. They'd talked about the future in quiet moments when Emma was asleep and the world felt like it belonged to just the two of them, about what forever might look like, about building something that honored the past without being trapped by it. On a Sunday morning in late October, exactly 1 year after that disastrous date at Valentino's, James took Sophia back to the library where everything had changed. Emma was with James's parents for the weekend, which meant they had the rare luxury of time alone. Why are we here? Sophia asked, laughing as he led her to the children's section. Because this is where you gave me a second chance. This is where Emma asked if you were a fairy. This is where I started believing that maybe I deserved something good after all.
You, to raise her to be as brave and honest and kind as you are. And I promise that every single day I will be grateful that fate decided to give us another chance. Sophia's vows made everyone cry. James, when I met you, I'd built walls so high I'd forgotten what it felt like to be vulnerable. I decided that being alone was safer than risking disappointment again. And then there you were. Honest about your mistakes, willing to face consequences, showing up even when it was hard. You taught me that second chances aren't about erasing the past, they're about choosing to write a different future. You and Emma gave me something I'd stopped believing in, a family built on honesty and laughter and showing up for each other, even when it's messy. I promise to love you through the hard days and the good ones. I promise to be patient when Emma asks me for the 1,000th time if cats can really understand human language. I promise to remember that we're all just doing our best, and that grace and forgiveness are the foundations of real love. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for staying. Thank you for choosing me. When they kissed, Emma cheered so loudly that everyone laughed. The reception was in a small restaurant nearby. Good food, better company, the kind of celebration that felt warm and genuine. Caroline Chen gave a toast that acknowledged the unconventional beginning of their relationship without dwelling on it. Sometimes, she said, the worst moments crack us open enough to let the light in. Here's to my daughter and her new family. May you always choose each other. Emma gave a toast too, standing on a chair so everyone could see her. I knew Dad and Sophia were going to get married before they knew it, because I could tell they were in love even when they were being weird about it. And now we're a real family, which means Pixel and Bite are my brother and sister, and I'm very happy about that. The laughter that followed was full of affection. As the evening wound down, James and Sophia stood on the restaurant's patio watching the sun set over the city. A year ago, I had $32 and no hope. And now, Sophia leaned into him, now I have everything. He kissed the top of her head. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for being worth it.
Inside, through the window, they could see Emma dancing with Caroline, her purple dress twirling as she laughed. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. It was messy. It was built from broken pieces that had somehow fit together into something beautiful. And it was theirs. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever needed a second chance or given one, leave a comment below. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that our worst moments don't have to define us, that healing is possible, that love finds us in the most unexpected places, often when we're not even looking for it. And if you believe in stories that prove broken people can find beautiful new chapters, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because everyone deserves to remember that redemption is real, that dignity matters, and that sometimes the worst decision of your life can lead you exactly where you were always meant to be. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing. And remember, it's never too late to become the person you wish you'd been all along.